Thanks, Brittny. Great to see everybody here today. What a beautiful day in Victoria. I thought it was a nice day in Vancouver, but boy, even nicer over here on the Victoria side. It was a profoundly difficult week for British Columbians last week, following the attacks after the Lapu Lapu Festival. Over the weekend, there were memorial services. And I want to thank those who organized them and hosted them. We had a very moving memorial mass at the Holy Rosary Cathedral in downtown Vancouver. I know there were other ceremonies across the province marking this horrific tragedy, and I know the British Columbians are standing with the Filipino community, with the families of the victims, and those who are still struggling in hospital. We're thinking of you. The president of the U.S. has been active again, threatening Canadian sovereignty, casting shadows and doubts on the election of our Prime Minister, Prime Minister Carney, threatening major industries, including our film industry, ludicrous suggestions all, and yet he continues. Now more than ever, we have to ensure that we are using our economic advantages that we have here in British Columbia to support a Canadian-wide project, to ensure that our country can stand on our own 2 feet, reduce our reliance on the United States. Now, we don't want to do that at any cost. We want to do that in a way that protects our Canadian values as well, ensuring that we're protecting our environment for future generations, ensuring that we're doing this in a sustainable way and in a way that will grow prosperity for future generations, not take it away. Which is why I'm so proud of the work that's being done in this province under Minister Dix, under BC Hydro, in terms of leading the way on clean energy for British Columbians and for Canadians. We have a generational opportunity here to be a clean energy superpower, to contribute to the vision of Canada as an energy superpower in our own way here in British Columbia, while protecting our province, but also our planet from pollution, ensuring that we're using our clean electricity to build. Now, I think there are many British Columbians looking around at infrastructure in our province who see that we have been living on infrastructure built by our grandparents for too long, whether it's roads and sewers or highways or train tracks or you name it. We need to modernize. We need to ensure that we're building infrastructure for the next generation. And the good news about that is it means jobs, it means economic security, and it means sovereignty for British Columbia and for Canada. You'll have seen that we introduced new legislation to enable us to do this building faster for public projects like schools and hospitals that our communities need, for private projects that drive jobs in our province at this time of crisis and pressure put on us by the President of the United States. It also includes legislation that allows us to build electricity faster, transmission lines, as well as generation right across the province. We recently launched BC Hydro's first call for power in 15 years. There are 9 wind and 1 solar project that have been approved under that call for power. That's enough to power 500,000 homes. It represents $6 billion in private capital spending. It reflects 2,000 jobs a year during construction. 8 of the projects have majority First Nations ownership. And that means $3 billion in assets owned by First Nations. So provide clean, cheap electricity to grow projects in our province and to reduce our carbon pollution at the same time as we produce clean materials that we know the world needs. This is all key to our vision of ensuring that British Columbia is the economic engine that drives a sovereign and independent Canada, and my message to the Prime Minister has been consistent with that. We need a strong federal partner in this work. We know that BC will play a crucial role in the vision of an independent Canada, everything from our ports to our resources and, of course, our clean electricity. The announcement today is consistent with that work. We're launching an ambitious new strategy to harness our clean energy advantage. This includes a second call for power with the goal of powering more than 500,000 more homes with clean electricity in this province. Through the plan, we're going to boost our clean energy supply. We're going to create employment for British Columbians right across the province. And this includes thousands of family-supporting jobs. And we'll support industry across the province with cheaper energy so that they can not only reduce pollution, but increase the prosperity of everyone in the province. This will help keep rates affordable while building our collective wealth as a province. This is about powering our future, reducing pollution and securing a strong and prosperous future for the next generation, building strong economies, and doing it in a way that works for everybody in the province. We can do this if we work together, and we will work together, British Columbians and Canadians alike, as we ensure that we're not only standing up to the threats coming from south of the border, but that we're actually building a country that is strong and free and proud and powered by clean BC electricity. With that, Brittny, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Premier. And now I would like to invite my Cabinet colleague, Adrian Dix, Minister of Energy and Climate Change, to say a few words.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here on the territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Sanghees, and the Esquimalt First Nations. Honored to be here on this site today to make a very significant announcement for the future of BC, an announcement that builds our economy, that addresses climate change, that builds our relationship with First Nations, that creates job and growth and hope and opportunity. As the Premier's noted, this announcement today contains 5 key elements. The first, a second call for power. We're expecting this call to be equivalent to the first call of power in terms of gigawatt hours, a call for power that will be slightly different than the previous one in that there will be no limits on individual projects. We're out there looking to see what we can do together, a call that will continue to involve participation by First Nations across the province. It will create jobs and opportunity. The last call for power was successful on price, an average levelized price 45% below the call for power in 2009, which had been the previous call for power in BC. Price for wind projects below what the province of Quebec had received in a similar call for power recently. The second aspect is a call for expressions of interest on firm power, geothermal and hydro and battery and other possibilities that will be launched this month and which will have as a deadline September. As a result of that call for expressions of interest, BC Hydro will be able to partner with providers across the province on new opportunities for firm power, which strengthens the value of intermittent power such as wind, but also will build BC across the board. It's power we need to build the growing opportunities in our economy. Thirdly, a call for expressions of interest on conservation. Build on our successful Power Smart program, our $700 million program. We are seeking proposals from industry and from people across BC that will reduce the cost and the amount of energy people use, sometimes the most efficient way to address our energy needs in future, a way that also creates jobs and reduce costs for people, particularly people who are struggling with the cost of living these days. Fourthly, we're going to add expenditure, $12 million to the BC Innovative Clean Energy Fund to allow BC-based innovation in clean energy in our province, to fund active and marketable projects right now that will build opportunities in communities across BC. And finally, we'll be speeding up connections for businesses, speeding up connections for construction projects to ensure and reducing costs at a time when the province's economy needs that, and we need BC Hydro to be active on that side of things. 5 elements in addition to our $36 billion capital plan, which is intended to create 10,000 to 12,000 jobs every year, and which will build out and both replace existing infrastructure, build out new infrastructure in our province. In addition to the 10 clean energy projects we announced in the first call for power, in addition to the legislative changes we've made to ensure that we don't just announce projects, but that we build them. This is an exciting day for British Columbia. In the 1960s, there was an opportunity to transform the economy, and BC Hydro, the new BC Hydro, the nationalized BC Hydro, was the center of a lot of that activity. W.A.C. Bennett saw the future. Well, there is a future now. We need to build a stronger BC Hydro, opportunities for British Columbia. We need to take this moment and build in our province, take advantage of our clean energy advantage, and also, and importantly, address fundamental issues of First Nations participation in our economy and climate change. This is our moment. It's time to get to work, and we are going to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Now I would like to invite Robert Phillips, First Nations Summit Political Executive and member of the First Nations Leadership Council, to give a few remarks.
Thank you. Wait, Chukwinokla Squatwin. I too give acknowledgements to the Songhees and Esquimalt. I'm from the northern Shwapin to Kalmuk, from Chikeskin up by Canham Lake, 100 Mile House, and as well from the Chwake tribes at Stalo, at Skokale. When I got the notice that there will be a meeting here, of course I showed up. Look at it, it's such a beautiful day. And but just to let you know, in I think it was 1859, there was a proclamation by then Governor Douglas that this is now hereby Vancouver Island. This is now hereby British Columbia. And we know that the land's resources, as per the Canadian Constitution, Section 35, as well as now, and we commend British Columbia for doing the work around the UN Declaration and the Declaration Act and the work that's underway. And, the minister, we had a brief discussion out here, it was a little while ago, assuring me that in terms of short-term, medium-term, long-term goals, because First Nations do have a big hesitation when we hear, fast-tracked, something that's faster, because of course of the work that we need to do to ensure the protection of our lands, resources, and our water. And so I think, especially with these projects, 9 out of 10 being 50% or more equity owned. And when we talk about the UN Declaration as well, we also have discussions not only of co-development of policies, procedures, laws, and legislation, but projects. And I think that's a very important one, especially now with the Trump tariffs. I'm on the Premier's task force for that as well. And we know it's a real threat. We just look across the way in the United States in terms of what's happening there. And so we know that we need employment, we know we need skills training, we need all of those things, and it starts here and now. And we need to do that because we're already seeing an impact potentially $50-70 billion in the next 3 to 5 years. That could be a big impact to our economy here. And who feels it the most? It is First Nations. And so when we see projects that go into isolated, rural, coastal, northern areas of British Columbia where First Nations are located, it's a good thing because if there's prosperity for First Nations, there's prosperity for all of British Columbians and Canadians. And so again, with these private partnerships, we're hoping for benefit for First Nations, but as well for everyone. And I wanted to emphasize that this is a good step in the right direction. And of course, the relationship between First Nations and the government is on a government-to-government basis. With Canada, it's nation to nation. And so when the Premier speaks in terms of the work that we see that will happen, we will make sure that, I'll give you an example. There's the First Nations Clean Energy Strategy, and a strategy that was implemented from First Nations, all 204, that it input in workshops. So that's true consultation in terms of the work that's underway. And around the UN Declaration as well, and the Declaration Act that we see here, the free, prior, and informed consent that's necessary. And that doesn't necessarily mean the veto. That means consulting, communicating, having relationships. So I just came back from a mining conference up in Prince George, and a lot of industry and organizations there were talking and mentioning the relationships that they have with First Nations. And it starts at the grassroots, and it eventually it leads to First Nations and for governments all throughout British Columbia. So the Leadership Council and the First Nation leadership, although there are some concerns and issues along the way, we're in support and we're here to work with the government of British Columbia in this area. Cooksdown, thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Now I call upon Chris O'Reilly, President and CEO of BC Hydro, to give a few more details on the second call for power and other actions we are announcing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Anderson. It's a privilege to join you today on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. For generations, BC Hydro has powered British Columbia's homes, businesses, and industries, driving growth and strengthening communities. As we plan for the future, our focus remains on expanding our electricity system to meet the demand while ensuring security, sustainability, and affordability. The Clean Power Action Plan, outlined by the Premier and Minister Dix, provides the forward-looking vision that we need to achieve this. Today, I'd like to highlight 3 of the key initiatives. First, we are building on the success of the 2024 Call for Power, which delivered 10 new renewable energy projects with enough electricity to serve the equivalent of 500,000 homes. This summer, we'll launch a second Call for Power, ensuring continued affordable electricity access for growing communities. The 2025 Call for Power will target 5,000 gigawatt hours of clean and renewable energy from large-scale projects in partnership with First Nations and independent power producers, powering the equivalent of 500,000 homes. First Nations economic participation will follow the similar model from the 2024 call, where we'll have at least a minimum of 25% First Nations ownership and incentives for increased participation and additional benefits. And the electricity purchase agreements will be awarded in early 2026. The plan also introduces a request for expressions of interest for capacity and firm baseload power to meet peak demand and provide backup for intermittent energy resources in our province. We also have a request for expressions of interest for market-ready demand-side management technologies to help people save energy and money. With BC Hydro's long legacy of delivering clean, reliable power, these initiatives will drive growth, sustainability, and energy security, creating new opportunities across British Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The actions we're outlining today. The actions we are outlining today are built on British Columbia's strong and innovative renewable energy industry. With over 200 members, the Clean Energy Association of British Columbia represents the vast majority of clean energy operating and development companies in the province and works in partnership with Indigenous organizations and First Nations to support the advancement of their priorities in the clean energy industry. Kwatuma Cole Sayers is the Executive Director of Clean Energy BC, and we are very happy to have him here with us today to say a few words.
Thanks, Minister. And thank you for the invitation to participate today. It's a great day. My name is Kwatuma, that is my new child's name. And I want to just start off on a personal note because it is such a day to celebrate. I grew up in this industry, in clean energy. My mother, Judith Sayers, she built one of the first clean energy projects that were led by a First Nation. And this is the time when there was not very many, and it was more of just an IBA, where it was more of a passive recipient. Today, after the first call, First Nations are now the proponent of these utility scale projects. And it's not just British Columbia, but it's all over Canada and increasingly across the world, where First Nations are leading the clean energy transition through industry partnerships, building renewable projects. So I just want to thank government and BC Hydro for their actions in what resulted in today, the Clean Power Action Plan. Clean Energy BC has been the voice for the clean energy industry for over 30 years. We represent the industry and First Nations who want to build renewable energy projects in British Columbia. We also prioritize Indigenous leadership and capacity building in those First Nations who want to build utility scale renewable energy projects, but also displacing diesel in remote communities that use diesel generation for electricity. So we have a diverse membership, and we all have alignment on what we need to do, which is to maintain help maintain BC to be competitive, and that's building on our backbone, which is clean electricity. And with today, we're one step closer to building on that and strengthening our grid. And today's announcement builds on the momentum of the 2024 Call for Power and makes a historic step towards a cleaner and more competitive British Columbia. The Clean Power Action Plan and launch of a second Call for Power reflects a growing recognition that we need long-term solutions to meet rapidly increasing electricity demand from our communities and industries. We must act now to bolster our energy security, to support well-paying jobs, and to diversify and strengthen our economy in the face of unprecedented uncertainty. Clean Energy BC is encouraged by the direction outlined in the plan, including the target of 5,000 gigawatt hours, the exploration of baseload resources, focus on Indigenous leadership and equity, tools to streamline permitting, and the prioritization of affordability, particularly in the non-integrated areas. These are practical steps to ensure BC Hydro and the clean energy sector can respond to the demands of our growing province, particularly across the housing, industrial, manufacturing, and transportation sectors, while maintaining predictable rates in a stable investment climate. In addition to acting on several CEB's recommendations, the plan reaffirms a shared belief between CEBC and the province that clean energy development must be done in true partnerships with First Nations and industry, and that reconciliation and economic growth and climate leadership are fundamentally linked. Clean Energy BC members are experienced in building meaningful and lasting partnerships between First Nations and industry. These partnerships mean more local ownership, keeping valuable investment dollars, revenues, jobs, and spin-off benefits right here at home. With this clear plan, BC is driving more certainty for First Nations and industry and prioritizing meaningful reconciliation. Together, we can build an energy system that meets today's needs while laying the foundation for shared prosperity, economic resilience, and long-term energy security. The Clean Energy Association of British Columbia remains deeply committed to working alongside First Nations, governments, utilities, and industry to deliver the next generation of clean power in this province. We have a historic opportunity to meet demand and shape a grid and economy that are cleaner, more equitable, and resilient. Let's continue building the future we want together with clarity, collaboration, and shared purpose. I want to thank the organizers today and the Lekwungen-speaking peoples for allowing us to do this on their lands. And so thank you. Kweko, kweko.
Thank you so much, Kwatuma, and to you and Clean Energy BC. Certainly, the success of the 2024 Call to Power and our ability to launch a second Call for Power this year, we owe a lot to the advocacy of your association and in bringing government, BC Hydro, First Nations, and the renewable energy industry together in partnership to advance new clean energy projects. At a time where there seems to be so much wrong with the world, it has been really uplifting to be with you here today for today's announcement in this beautiful and inspiring setting. Yet we face challenges, but we are prepared, we are strong, and we are taking the lead. I say that as a resident of this amazing province and in my role as Minister of Local Government and Rural Communities. The bold actions we are taking out of our electricity system will bring jobs, economic opportunities to every corner of our province, helping rural and remote communities, regional districts, municipalities, and First Nations grow and thrive. In closing, I would like to thank the City of Victoria for its help with all of the logistics for arranging us to be here at Clover Point this morning. And thank you for joining us. And now we'll take some questions from the media.
Thanks so much for everyone joining us today. For those on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. We will start with questions on the ground. Richard Sussman, Global News.
Premier, have you had an opportunity yet to speak to the BC film sector about the threats made by President Trump? And what kind of, in essence, retaliation could BC put in place to protect the industry if somehow the president is able to put this 100% tariff in on films made outside of the U.S.?
Thanks, Richard. Let me speak to the people who work in our amazing film industry directly. Our province will stand with you. We are so proud of the work that you do. We are international recognition for exceptional quality, for delivering time and time again. It's fantastic, and it's why we've stepped up to support the industry with additional supports. It's an industry that touches every corner of our province and also drives tourism. People travel some distance to visit the location of Canadian films and television shows that see worldwide distribution. The president's proposal is incredibly hard to understand. I try to imagine, as an American, an option for two versions of Netflix, one where you get just a handful of productions, the other where you pay $50 a month or $100 a month and you get to see what everyone else in the world gets to see. To say the implementation would be challenging is an understatement. We don't watch DVDs anymore. But regardless, even if the president does somehow find a way, we will stand with our film industry, and we'll stand with the film industry around the world to make sure that we are protecting the rights of Americans to see what they want to see, which includes high-quality productions filmed right here in Canada.
Richard, for a follow-up?
Prime Minister Carney is meeting with President Trump tomorrow. You can talk about this issue as well, but big picture, what is the expectation from British Columbia around what you would like to see out of this meeting, and what would you like to see the Prime Minister come home with?
Well, the context of the conversation is important. I'm seeing the president ramp up his 51st state rhetoric again. For some reason, and bizarrely refuse to rule out military interventions in Canada, calling our country's borders artificial. And so, first of all, and I know the Prime Minister's up for this, I want to see him ensure that we're standing up strong for our country's sovereignty. We're not tolerating that kind of talk. But the second piece is, to the extent that the conversation is able to get there, is to underline the mutual benefit that we enjoy as Canadians and Americans of a close partnership. I think about our timber industry here, I think about our film industry, the jobs that are dependent on both sides of the border, and the same true in the auto sector in Ontario. I'm very hopeful that the Prime Minister squarely addresses the softwood lumber threats, as well as additional duties that have been imposed on British Columbia companies in terms equal to his advocacy for industries that are in Ontario and Quebec that are affected. Because I believe that there is a possibility of a softwood lumber deal. We've got $10 billion in a tariff bank account that's just sitting there. It's not advancing the interests of Americans or Canadians. And Americans paying more for the building materials they need for their homes doesn't make any sense. So regardless of the specific industry, I want the Prime Minister to be strong. I want him to stand up for our country. I want him to take no guff from the President. And I want him to be constructive and to underline the shared prosperity that we've enjoyed and that can be expanded if we work together.
Rob Buffin, CTV.
Oh, hi, Premier. The industry here, the film industry employs about 26,000 people. I want to get your thoughts on how devastating it could be if there is indeed some kind of tariff. We've seen the impacts of the writer and screen actors strike in 2023. The value of the industry in BC has decreased. What are your concerns about what tariffs could mean for this film industry?
Well, first of all, to the folks in the film industry, don't panic. The president tweets a lot of stuff. The implementation challenges of this are profound and hard to understand exactly how this would work. The industry is strong and growing in British Columbia. We recently learned that The Last of Us has signed on for another season here. That's a 9-figure production in British Columbia. Shogun, another season, buckle up Port Moody, to become historic Japan. We're proud of the work that we do here. Everything from the amazing Hallmark movies right up to the big budget productions. It's an important sector for our province. We're going to stand strong for you. There's no question that the president is threatening people who work in industries across British Columbia and across Canada. His stated intent is to beggar our economy so that we become the 51st state. We won't let the president do that. We'll stand strong for the film industry, for the softwood lumber industry, for all of the industries in British Columbia, and make sure that we're expanding markets internationally and ensuring that jobs are strong. Today's announcement is part of that. Clean electricity will drive many of the industries, drive our competitive advantage as we enter global markets. And we'll find those ways to support our film industry as well as any other affected workers.
Follow-up from Rob.
Yeah, here we've done things like provide tax credits in December to attract foreign productions here, subsidies back in 2023. Would you consider, we're so closely linked and we're helping the Americans here, would you reconsider doing that, or would that not make sense? And I'm also curious, we saw what happened with Zelensky in the Oval Office. How carefully are you going to be watching? You said you don't want him to take any guff, but how closely are you going to be tuned in to see tomorrow's meeting?
So I think that for BC film productions and for our teams that work here, as long as there's a level playing field with other jurisdictions in terms of the tax treatment of productions, our teams can compete with any production team around the world. And when they create the films, they're broadcast around the world. They create intellectual property, all of which is exempt from tariffs unless it's put on a DVD and shipped across the border. So it's hard to know how the specific proposal would work. But regardless, we know that we're competitive with the best, but part of that is ensuring a competitive tax environment, and that's what we deliver for the film industry, and that's what we're going to continue to deliver. We're not going to be making any changes to that. As far as the meeting with the Prime Minister and the President, I'm glad Prime Minister Carney is doing it. It's got to be a profoundly challenging thing to do, but I am hopeful that with his experience working with world leaders, that he's able to bring the tone that we need as Canadians to stand up for our country, to keep his elbows up, protect our provinces and territories, protect our people, and also to underline to the President that his devastating plunge in popularity, the discontent among Americans, the threats of empty shelves, the collapse in shipping into the country, the rising bond yields, the threat to the American dollar's hegemony, all of these things come because he is not recognizing that we're better off together. And the sooner that he recognizes that Canadians and Americans can and have worked together closely for generations, and we've both benefited from that, the better off he's going to be in terms of his ratings, in terms of the economic outcomes for Americans, and the quality of life for Americans that are just going to see higher prices and less of what they need.
Next, we'll take a question from Alec Lazenby, Vancouver Sun.
Hi, Premier. Minister Chandra Herbert went down to Los Angeles in November for some meetings with the film sector. What came out of those meetings? What were the discussions that you're aware of? And do you have any plans to send him back down there for further conversations? Is that worthwhile at this point?
We're going to maintain our close connections, it's hard to even describe a separate film industry between Canada and the United States. We're so tightly integrated. We have a strong domestic film industry here that tells our stories as Canadians, but many of the people who work on those productions also work on huge blockbuster productions that notionally originate in the United States, but are often international productions filmed in multiple countries. We have the outcome of the meetings and the charm offensive that the minister led with Una Krieger, our parliamentary secretary for film, is things like finalizing the deals for The Last of Us and Shogun. This is hundreds of millions of dollars in production value for British Columbia. We're going to continue to do that work. We're going to continue to reach out to the industry. Part of the trade work that we have to do now is reassuring our partners that we're going to stand with them through these threats and come out the other side, because we know as shelves empty out across the United States and all of a sudden Americans have access to half of the TV shows and movies that they used to have access to, that there will be a shift in how the United States is governed, because people won't stand for that. And so either the president is going to shift his position on these issues, or the midterm elections are going to be a difficult one indeed.
Thanks so much to everyone for joining us today. That's all we have time for.
Thanks very much.